Now we're going to assemble the Z-axis. I'm just going to start by assembling this stepper motor so we can just put it aside. Like I've shown in previous videos, there's a flat on the shaft here that we want to correspond with one of these grub screws. So I'm just going to pop that out of the way over there. The next thing I'm going to do is join together a couple of these parts. I'll assemble this panel here. These two panels sandwich this panel here. So there's a little bit of preparation work that needs to be done on this one before we bring them all together. And we're going to be making up some little brackets that hold the extruder. So it's really important, the orientation of these part sets are really important. They need to create the slots that the extruder slot into. And so those slots need to face each other. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So if we put these two together, it's probably best if you actually lay out the parts in this way. And that means that you won't get it wrong. So I'm going to take these two parts here and just lay them on top like this. And you'll see what I mean, that when we bring these together, they're set up in the opposite way, so that when they sit in the machine like this, the slots face each other. So they need to be a reflection across a center line. Now to line these up, you'll have a little piece of 1.75 millimeter ABS filament in your kit. I'm just going to break off a few little parts here. And there's a range of little holes for these to sit in. And we just use these little pieces of filament as pins to locate the parts in place. I'm just going to break off a few more of these. You can cup them if you like. So the great thing about the ABS is that when we use the PVC primer, it actually melts the ABS quite nicely, and it becomes like quite a strong glue to hold the parts together. Okay, now that those are sitting like that, I'm going to take the PVC primer and just dab around each of those little pins, and that'll wick into the hole and start to set the ABS pins in place. I'm also going to put a few more drops just down in that little slot there, and just on these little tabs at the back. That'll wick into the part as well. We want the parts to be stuck together, particularly up at that leading edge. Now I'll let those sit and bond for 20 minutes or so. Might just grab a little piece of card and sit those on there. PVC primer, like any solvent, is toxic, so avoid getting it on your fingers. So these two parts have now set, and I've just grabbed my knife and trimmed off the excess filament, the bits that were sticking out. Now I'm going to assemble this part. These lock into this part, the one that has two countersunk holes there. Now you'll notice this says face this side in. It faces into the center part, which means that these two brackets need to sit on the outside. So they sit in like this. So you'll notice the writing is on the opposite side. So just take those out there. Pop that down for the minute. Now there's two little grub screws that I want to just get in place first. So M3 by 6 I think they are. And there's two holes, or a hole that you've tapped in each of these parts. So I'll just pop that in here. I'm going to flip this part back over again. I may as well just lie it on top of this part over here. I'm just going to put one of those square nuts in this little slot like that. And then pop that, slot that in place there. And from the back side, Allen key, we'll just do that up. And we'll do the same for this one. Flat head screw M3 by 8 from the back. Lock that in place and do it up. So now that's ready to assemble. So pop that on this part here, making sure that we align the cutout for the stepper motor to sit in. So the stepper motor goes in there. And I'm going to just take these M3 by 12 button heads, just slot them in place. I'll just grab a couple of them for starters. They do tend to fall out, so when we flip this over. So we might just do it like that. Now, there are 3 slots here and a slightly smaller slot there that we need to put some of these card spaces in. These just space out the nut, the square nut in there so that it can be reached by the corresponding bolt. And we're just going to sit the square nuts in there. We'll take our other part, so the face this side in, and flip that in to face the part, and then turn that over and do up these M3 by 12 button heads. There's a whole bunch of other holes which we need to do this for. So there is one on that side, another one up here, and one in the center. Now there's 2 longer ones here. These are M3 by 30. One needs to go in this slot here and the other one needs to go in this little tab that's sitting out the top. Now these are important. These are for your limit switches. So this needs to be in the right spot. So if we're looking at the, or they both need to be in the right spot. This one's easy to locate. This one could go in any of the other holes, but we just want to make sure that it's in the right spot here, that as we're looking at this part with those two brackets there, that this is on the left hand side halfway up. So I'm just going to do all of these others up. Okay, so now we've got some rattly little nuts in this part, and we can start to locate these bearings, the bearing races in these slots.